We will call to order the Arizona State Parks Board, Arizona State Parks and Trails meeting for, what is today? Thursday, October 16th, 2025. And with that, may we have Member Palmberg lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And I'll make note what a great picture that was. I'm assuming that was Superstition?
Picacho.
It was Picacho, okay. Excellent, excellent. All right, so with that, may we have a member roll call?
Yes, John Sefton,
Present.
Dale Larson,
Here.
Jeff Buchanan,
Here.
Sarah King,
Here.
Terry Palmberg.
Here.
We have quorum.
Excellent. And with that, our mission statement, as board members, we are gathered today to be the stewards and voice of the Arizona State Parks and its mission statement to connect people to the outdoors and history of Arizona to build a lifetime of memories. Move on to agenda item D1, consideration and action to approve the minutes of September 18th, 2025 board member meeting. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chair, Terry Palmer, I move the approval of the minutes from the September 18th, 2025 as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item number D2, consideration of consent agenda, items 2A through 2H. Consent agenda, so that everyone's aware, are noticed in a way that we have to expedite our action. Documentation concerning these matters on the consent agenda may be reviewed by the board packet as posted on the internet, as well as here physically, and the board can take one vote on all actions related to this item. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question on just one of the items, just real quickly, if that's all right?
Absolutely.
Just in order. On item 2E, the cost amendment increase, which is nearly a 100% amended increase. I was just wondering if Matt or someone could explain, because I couldn't tell by the description what it referenced other than it was just an amendment increase.
Excellent. Matt?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm Matthew Everhart, the State Off-Highway Vehicle Coordinator for the agency. The specific amendment request for the $1,085,946 is to cover costs related to the well on the property, as well as some additional costs related to the restroom building. I do believe we have on the line our project manager from our construction services team, Tom Berenik, to speak specific to it, but there were just some extra costs that came in higher than anticipated related to the River Island staging area that we recently did a ribbon cutting just before Mickey departed in June. So the parking lot is open, but we're working into phase 2, which is what these funds will be used for. Ramada's restroom building, well, some additional lighting and additional beautification type things to where we can hopefully host a grand opening, if you will, once those phase 2 things are completed.
Mr. Chairman, was there any particular item, I mean, when you look at that significant increase and when it started, was there any particular item that really stood out that caused that huge, nearly 100% jump?
The largest one was the well, is my understanding, because we were working with Buckskin Sanitary. They had plans to develop their own water treatment facility just north of the River Island Market there on the 95. Those plans have since gone to the wayside. We're not quite sure where they're at with that, which is causing us to put in our own well and be self-sufficient there at the property to basically have that operational and available to the public once phase 2 is complete.
That makes sense. I'm sure the original
Yeah,
plan didn't call for that
Correct.
well on your property, so that, okay, thank you.
So
Mr.
with that
Chair,
is-
and that's really a good thing in the long run for the park.
A way better thing for the park.
Yeah.
So in essence, the scope changed significantly because of the identified need for the well
Correct.
and as related to the overall project.
Thank you. That was my only question.
Happy to answer any other questions.
Any other questions on the items as presented? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, Dale Larson, I move to approve the consent agenda items 2A through 2H as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Member King. And as this is a significant amount of dollars, we'll do roll call vote for this.
John Sefton,
Aye.
Dale Larson,
Aye.
Jeff Buchanan,
Aye.
Sarah King,
Aye.
Terry Palmberg,
Aye.
Excellent, so motion passes unanimously. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, grant manual updates. Nina.
Hello again, Mr. Chair, members of the board. We are here to talk about our grants manual and administrative guideline updates. I am really just here to give a high-level overview and then really give the team an opportunity to talk through the scoring criteria individually. The team has put a lot of work into this. We did leave one copy of the grants manual and administrative guidelines there on the table if you'd like to look at it. It's about 70 pages, so we didn't provide it to everybody. If you want to go to the next slide. So really wanted to talk through the process that the team went through. We really spent a lot of time reviewing our original grants manual and identifying those areas where we needed to dig in more. We knew that in such a large document, we were really looking for progress, not perfection. That next year, I think there will probably be some additional items that we would like to continuously improve and continue working on, but really what were the areas this year that were important that we needed to get updated. We had several meetings to really brainstorm. The team was very engaged in this process. You can see us there. We were working on the manual. Another shout out to marketing, who not only made it pretty, but also made it functional, and I think it's going to be much easier for people to find information in the manual than it was before. As you guys know, no matter how many times or how many people look at a document, at the end, you're still finding random typos and sort of random things. So we really put it through one last review just to make sure everything lines up. If you're going to go to the next slide. So sort of high level of the grants manual. Really the purpose of our grants manual is to provide guidance both for internal and external partners on all of our rules, regulations, and our processes. That includes things like what type of costs are allowable or unallowable, what counts as a matching cost, what money can you use for matching, what can you not. We talk a lot about how do you apply for grant funding, what does that look like to register in our web grant system, how do you go through the application process. We do talk about the committees and the board and the role that you play in helping us get these grants approved and get the money out to the community. We talk about cultural clearance, environmental processes, what that is going to look like, trying to prepare folks. That can take some time to get through. And then just general compliance, things like, are you shovel ready? What do title transfers, site development, what does it look like to close out your grant? We also talk through project agreements. When will you get that? What do those contracts look like? And then if you do need to do an amendment like we saw on some items today, what does that process look like to make sure that we can get your project up to date? And then we do spend a lot of time talking about how to get paid. So how do you submit claims for reimbursement? How do you manage your expenditures? How do you manage your budget? All that fun stuff. And then really the main purpose in the manual is to talk about updated scoring criteria. So we really want to make sure that folks understand up front what criteria we're using to score these grants as they go through the application process. And as we're getting more and more folks who are engaging with the grants program, we see that as being a much more competitive process than maybe it has been historically. And so that scoring criteria is going to be even more important than maybe it was in the past. So I think that's my part, and then I'm happy to answer any questions, but then I'm going to turn it over to the team to talk about individual scoring criteria and the work that they've done to identify those.
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan with a question and a comment.
Yes, sir, Member Buchanan.
So, thanks. And Nina, I guess I'll ask this when we get into the individual scoring criteria, but I saw the categories and the amounts awarded by category. Does the manual actually say what constitutes a higher score within each category, because the categories don't describe it.
If I understood the question, does the scoring criteria talk about how you get a higher score? Was that the question?
Yes,
It does. So it will talk about each of the criteria and how many points are assigned to that criteria. And then obviously the more of that criteria you meet, the higher points you'll get.
yeah, okay. I mean, I understand what you just said, but you'll see the root of my question when we get into the specific criteria. I mean, if, like location, well, is that good or bad? I understand what we got in the presentation was, we have a category and a number of points, but it doesn't actually say, well, how do you
Project readiness, this one's a big one for us. Is the project actually shovel ready? Are all of the required cultural, environmental documentations, studies already completed? And if so, are all of the proper clearances in place? If work can begin within 3 months of National Park Service approval, the sponsor will receive full points for that category. Partnerships, is the sponsor agency partnering with any external organizations who will contribute to the implementation of the project? In general, the more partnerships equal more points. And again, we don't allow them just to say, yes, we're partnering with this agency. We do require them to upload a letter of support from that agency, basically identifying how they are going to be partnering in this undertaking. Public involvement, that's also a big one. Has the public been given the opportunity to participate in the planning process? Have there been community open houses to solicit feedback on the proposal? Have these projects been reviewed during any public meetings? And again, we do ask for them to provide proof of that. Innovation and best practices. Does the proposal include any innovative techniques or best practices in terms of scoping or project implementation? Are there any innovative techniques that are being utilized during any phase of project design or implementation? Detailed budget. This one is it's always a difficult one to navigate. Our project cost estimates thorough, detailed, reasonable, and well supported by recent estimates. We also asked them to identify who actually helped in creating these estimates. And connectivity, does the project connect to any other parks, trails, or open spaces? Again, pretty obviously, projects that do create more connections receive additional points. We then kind of move on to the priorities that were identified in the score, including our conservation and environmental stewardship, sustainable outdoor recreation, connection, community, and economic vitality, as well as pathways to health and wellness. We then move on to our project management categories, which include our grant history. Has the sponsor administered similar federal grants within the last 5 years? That gives us an idea in terms of we think they're going to be successful with the administration of this. Maintenance capacity. Does the sponsor have a plan, staffing, and finances to actually maintain the property once it's developed? We also asked them about grant compliance, if they have any previously funded Land and Water Conservation Fund projects. If so, are all of those projects in compliance? If not, what are they doing to ensure, to at least work to make sure that they are getting close to being in compliance? And then finally, workshop attendance. Have they attended an informational workshop? We've learned just from experience, generally those who do attend these workshops are more successful in their applications. We are not requesting any action on this item. This was just kind of information only, just again to provide an update to refresh the board's memory as to how this scoring operates, but I would be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Chairman,
questions?
just a real quick question.
Larson?
I know that with LWCF, it requires a 50-50 match. Is that part of the evaluation in any of these categories where it shows that? Is that the budget, or just out of curiosity? Because I know you work hard to creatively use those matches to be able to make sure people can be eligible, but I don't see the match up here, so I'm just curious.
Member Larson, members of the board, that is not something we consider in this program. It's a requirement that they have that dollar for dollar match, so if they do not, we don't move them forward, and we don't allow them to match over 50%, because if they do and it's awarded that way, they basically have to maintain that same level of matching funds throughout the life of the project, which can get somewhat difficult. So we do our best to make sure it is exactly 50-50 split.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Jeff?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan with
Mr.
this
Buchanan.
question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate the detailed explanation of the scoring criteria. My question is really, in the past, when we've gotten these grants, we may have 3 or 4 different grant requests, and some score more than others. Sometimes we have to draw the line, not everybody gets awarded, sometimes they all get awarded, whatever the case may be. But on some things, like, let me just take the one example of your category on maintenance capacity. If we see that somebody has a project that they wanna move forward, but there is no plan to actually, for them to provide any maintenance capacity, how successful are we on actually getting them to change that plan? You know, because I don't think it's a good idea if we're awarding grants to projects that can't be maintained, because then sometimes we end up sucking up extra costs in the long term to maintain projects or put additional funds to it. So I understand the scoring criteria. The real question is, how successful are we at changing behavior on the grant application so that we get a better project?
Yeah, thank you, Member Buchanan. In terms of changing the behavior, I can't really speak to that. But if we do notice that they don't really have a strong plan in place for maintenance in perpetuity, we certainly bring that application back to them and recommend they give that some additional consideration. And ultimately, State Parks is the sponsor for these projects, so it is important that we ensure that these properties will be maintained, because we, again, are technically the sponsor, and there needs to be maintenance in perpetuity, and we do go out there and inspect all of these projects on a 5-year rolling basis. And if we do identify any maintenance issues during our inspections, we will make the sponsors aware of that.
Yeah, great, because, you know, my concern is when it comes forward to the board for approval of a project, we see the score total, but we don't know that there may actually be some red flags in there. If you guys are eliminating the red flags before they ever come to us, that's very helpful and reassuring, frankly.
Great question, Jeff, thank you. Question for you on the rigidity of the shovel readiness and that 90 days. Do we have flexibility with that? I'm recognizing that just to line up contractors and it being dependent upon National Park Service, which the turnaround hasn't necessarily been great, so that there's a conflict in timeline with relating to doing actual shovel work, being shovel ready, and getting the approval, and then just with what I've recognized, getting contracts and getting schedules for contractors to do things. Are we pretty flexible with that criteria? And it's obviously not a huge criteria, but in application of the funding, you're gonna pull money if we don't get something done in 100 days?
Chairman Septon, board members, no, absolutely not. That's really just for scoring purposes. We hope that they can stick to that timeline, but we know in the current environment that is not always the case. But these projects are usually awarded for 3 years to begin with, and then we can award additional amendments to increase the time of those projects up to 5 years. So ultimately, they have up to 5 years to complete the on-the-ground work. So kind of a little bit of buffer for some of those delays.
This was another year where we had some pretty solid increase in LWCF availability. So a lot of work underway and opportunities ahead for that. Thank you for the work. And this is not an action item, so.
Good job. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you. Yes, thank you, Judd. All right, we'll move on to item number 7. The board will consider and may take action to approve, modify, or deny the proposed Heritage Fund Historic Preservation Grant Scoring Criteria. Jessica Lapota.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I am Jessica Lapota. I'm the grants coordinator for the State Historic Preservation Office. And just a little background about my position, which I think you all know, but I reside within SHPO as opposed to part of the grants team. I work closely with the grants team. I'm peppering them with questions constantly. But I'm going to go through my process and SHPO's process of kind of redoing our scoring. It's pretty similar to what Nina and her team did, but a little bit different. Next slide. So the first thing that we did is look at our current application and scoring for issues and weaknesses. We've been using this application since 2022. I've been here for 2.5 years, so I've been through a full grant cycle to kind of see the pitfalls, see what's missing. Eric Fonye and I have probably had hours upon hours of discussions about the application, what it does well, what it does not do well, what we want to change. And then I've done lots of research. I looked up, I think, all 50 states to see if they had similar preservation grant programs. Texas and Maryland have really robust programs that I leaned on. And I also looked at pre-2008 Historic Preservation Heritage Fund grants to see what was historically awarded. Our current application really is geared to bricks and mortar projects, which is great, but there's a lot missing. So we wanted to create something that will allow more projects for education, for planning, for archaeological interpretation, more than just sort of rehabilitating the old building that's standing there. And then before we go to the next slide, I just wanted to point out this picture. Beyond it just being an impressive picture, this is the Lehigh Auditorium in Mesa. This was a project that was awarded in 2024. They needed to replace some wood trusses in their roof, so they quite literally had to remove the roof, get the giant crane, put in these huge beams, close it back up. And then next slide. And then that compares to the San Javier mission in Tucson, who did an art conservation project in one of their domes. And just, I mean, you can just see the diversity of projects that we get, where it goes from the giant cranes to literally using a needle to fill in some empty spaces in behind the plaster of this artwork. So we already get a diverse set of projects. We want to make it more diverse, so our scoring needed to reflect that. Our grant manual updates, just to kind of copy what Nina, her team were doing. It's still in draft. I don't have anything I can give you at the moment. It's not going to drastically change. We're going to try and add a lot more explanation about things, especially preservation related things, like what is the Secretary of the Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties? What is the National Register of Historic Places? Are you on it? How do you get on it? What's Section 106? What's the State Historic Preservation Act? Just things that I and SHPO use every day, but most people have no idea what that means. And I can recognize that. So just adding some of those things. Right, next slide. So this is just the high level scoring overview. I'll go through the breakdown just so that so you know, our current application or scoring gives 45 points for planning and how the project works with planning documents on the state, county, city level, 45 points for public benefit, and then 10 points for kind of the administrative side of things. So really you could score most of the project application without knowing much about project, which we still have fantastic projects, but that's obviously something that's missing. So the new application or new scoring will have 40 points for project narrative. This will be broken out into 10 points for a summary of the project, just telling us what are you planning on doing and why do you know that this is what needs to be done. There will be 10 points for public benefit, 5 points for timeline, 5 points for past work and planning. So this could either be, is this a phased project and you're going on to phase 2, so what's previously been done, or what work have you done to plan to make sure this will be a successful project? Do you have a historic building condition assessment report? That's another one of those definitions that I probably need to put in our manual. And then there will be 5 points for future work. So again, is this a phased project, or how will you address maintenance? How will you ensure that maintenance is ongoing and that we don't invest a bunch of money and then it just falls to pieces? And then 5 points for project team. Just make sure that you know who's on your team or who you need to get on your team. Do you need an architect? Do you need an engineer? Do you need an archaeologist? just, do you know at least who you need on your team and have an idea of how you're going to get them if you don't already have them? There'll be 10 points for budget, and this will be split out between the budget itself, like Jeff was saying, is this detailed enough that you know what you're talking about, but also not so detailed that you have 100 line items that there's no flexibility with. And then the budget narrative, which will just be a way for them to explain where they've gotten their numbers from, how they got their numbers. Is this just a rough estimate? Do you have actual quotes? That kind of thing. 10 points for project viability and planning. And this is where that community support and the planning documents comes in. Mostly just those planning documents. 15 points for threat and urgency. Is this building about to collapse? Is this building in Globe where you've just had massive flooding and so it's much more threatened than it was a month ago? Things like highly threatened buildings or projects will get more points here. And then 15 points for impact. And this will get broken out into 5 points for the significance and importance of the building, 5 points for addressing inclusive community narratives, and 5 points for physical or programmatic access by individuals with disabilities. And then the last section is special conditions. This is kind of our bonus points section.
Yeah, I do.
I like that
You might steal that.
I like that word.
I can't take credit for this. I think these last 3 sections I've pulled from Texas and Maryland applications quite a bit. They have great applications. So special considerations are going to be broken out into 5 points for tell us what we haven't asked you. What's important that we should know that wasn't included in the rest of us? We tried to reach all the details we could, but because it's such a diverse program, things are going to come up that there just wasn't a way for us to know we needed to ask the question. And then 5 points will go to rural projects. Predominantly our projects are in Phoenix and Tucson. I love all the projects we have in Phoenix and Tucson, but we want to reach a wider range of Arizona. So it'll be, I think, 5 points for towns that are less than 10,000 people, 3 points for 10 to 50,000, and then 0 points for 50,000 or above. I think that's the breakdown. So any questions?
Any questions for Jessica?
Chairman, just out of curiosity, how many of the projects are in historically designated areas, or the majority not in historically designated areas?
That is a good question. I think it's a variety. I can't think offhand exactly how many would go one way or the other. It's not really something we look for. One of the eligibility requirements is that the property or site is either listed on the National Register or is a contributor to a district.
Right.
So I think generally we get projects that are individually listed, so it's the building is listed on its own. But we have had projects where they're in a district, and sometimes those overlap, where it's the building is significant enough that it's listed on its own, but it's also within a historic district.
Thank you for that, because my thought was, if it is in a designated district or area, that I assume then shows the threat urgency is of a greater value than if it wasn't in a designated area where we're really trying to do it for preservation purposes. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it can go really either way, because sometimes it's the last building of what used to be a historic area, and it's the last building standing, so it's a very rare structure of what used to be a multitude of that type of building or site.
And then one other question, just out of curiosity for this as well, Jessica. Have you done any projects on tribal lands?
Yeah, so we have a project right now. Archaeology Southwest is the project sponsor, but they and we are working very closely with the Hopi at the village of Oribe, which is on Third Mesa, and it's working on the Sun Clan house, which is one of the clan houses there. The house is just not in good shape, so they're working to make it livable again and make it so that it can serve its community purpose again.
So that could be in the special condition area because it is tribal and it doesn't meet the, Phoenix, Tucson, Paradigm and all of those kinds of areas.
Yeah.
And I know this is true with the other grants, the same thing. We're trying to reach out and get more tribal partnerships and collaborations, so I very
Yeah.
good. We appreciate that.
And kind of as an aside, but I've been talking to tribes just to try and get more of that tribal engagement. And some of these questions are geared a little bit to make it more open to tribes as well as everybody.
And I apologize, Mr. Chairman, just, do we have an archaeologist on board on your staff, or do you have to contract that out?
I mean, about half of SHPO are trained archaeologists,
Okay.
but they don't go in the into sites to do archaeology. They just do the compliance side of things.
Okay.
So they review all of the projects with any ground disturbing activities to ensure that it follows the State Historic Preservation Act. But they wouldn't be the ones actually going and doing the archaeological stabilization.
The actual work
Yes.
with it. So is the environmental impact studies related to this as well? I mean, that could eat up a lot of the money if that was required, right?
It could, I guess we haven't run into that, and I think because it's state funds, they don't need to go through NEPA and all of that. There's the state level requirements, which is the State Historic Preservation Act as opposed to the National Historic Preservation Act. That's not fully my wheelhouse, so I'm not gonna be able to give you the best explanation.
Well, that's good. I think at some point, Mr. Chairman and Director Burside, it would be good to have a presentation just on that whole archaeological historic preservation because one, it's a great education, ties in the tribal relationship on so many things. And I think it would just be good for us because I'm sure you do not have the amount of funding you need for all of these projects. I don't know what the percentage is, but my guess is you guys are scraping away with just whatever you can come up with.
Yeah, I think at the last time I presented, or the last time historic preservation grants were presented, I think it was something like we had half or more grants that applied that we weren't able to fund. I feel like I didn't quite say that correctly, but we had a lot more grants that applied that we just ran out of funding.
Right, and that's the depressing part of all this, so anyway.
And that's where my comment was gonna go, as far as we have historically had less funding in this space and more need. And so the criteria becomes that much more staff-centric in being able to judge and differentiate and prioritize these. So, in recognizing that as well and reaching out to the nations and integrating that effort into all of the plans by all means. But thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Buchanan.
Yes, sir.
So given that we probably are always gonna have more need than money available to do the work. I'm just curious, is there any sort of prioritization for things that are already in the state park system? Let me just give you an example. If we have a need at Tubac, which is a state park, and the same sort of need at Tumacacori, which is right next door and a national park, does Tubac score more, or are they treated the same in this system?
I think it would just fall down to being project specific. How it works right now is that the funding first goes to organizations outside of state parks, and then if there's funding left over, the state parks can apply for the funding.
Yeah, so that doesn't, I just gotta say, that doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I understand what you just said, But if we have things that are state parks and we don't have enough money to maintain them, and yet we are less competitive when it comes to applying for grants through SHPO to do the exact same maintenance, I don't understand what sense that makes. We don't have enough money in parks to maintain historic structures. So why are we less competitive than any other entity, including a national park or private organization?
That is not a requirement that I created. That's, I believe, grants wide. I don't want to speak for you guys, but I believe that's grants wide, and I think that was a requirement that was given to us. I will say that we do not fund any projects on federal land, and that's something that we just double checked on. So it stays either at the state level or on a smaller scale.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Director.
you know, Member Buchanan's point is well taken. I mean, you guys can set this criteria any way you want. If you want us to prioritize state parks. But I think with these grants, though, this is our connection to, you know, external partners and there's also not a whole lot of money. I think a lot of our projects, like he's mentioning at Tubac, I mean, we're talking millions and millions of dollars of grants where we haven't been, but we try, but we haven't been successful is going through our capital improvement program to fund, you know, our historic structures. You just haven't been getting the funding. So we have that opportunity and then leave the grants for externals, but I think we can talk about it a little more, but certainly, you know, if the board wants us to lean more towards our own structures on these heritage grants, we can definitely do that. But if there were talking millions of dollars, I think we could have that discussion, but there's not much in there, especially this fiscal year, to really, you know, if we get one project or maybe 1.5 projects, we would be done, right? Jessica, I mean, we would be out of money, so, but certainly the other grants, we've always tried to we tried to be a pig but not a hog when it comes to our grants. We have watercraft, we have OHV, but we don't want to be looking at the one eating up the lion's share of a really it was an external grant program. It just probably just wouldn't sit well, but this is an area that we could probably look at opportunities if those others don't come forward. If our capital, we don't get that funding like Tubac has been, we got it, taken away, get it back, taken away again, then maybe, I think we've tried to keep our projects on par with everybody else's, that if we submit a project, Jessica's gonna look at it just like any other project, so we're not looking like we're getting any sort of favoritism on it. And some of our projects may not rank as high as some of these other ones, and so there's just a lot of comparing, I think, Tubac to Tumacacri, like Jessica said, there's 1,000 factors in there other than it's just our land versus their land. If we're gonna make sure that we're not being arbitrary or capricious when it comes to, you know, granting our own projects, I wanted to make sure our projects pass muster with everybody else.
So it's safe to really put this in the trust of the director, that it's not exclusionary, or state parks projects are not excluded from. It has been a philosophy over the past several years that there are statewide other organizations. There is a PR, public relations aspect to how we are engaging and what funds stay within state parks, that state parks has the responsibility to administer and distribute. But taking that with a objective look through the team, through yourself, I certainly feel confident that we're on a good track, that we're not excluding ourselves. And to Board Member Buchanan's point, that we definitely have priorities. We have to manage what buckets we can pull from and how to operationalize each of the projects and the funding resource that's necessary. Is that helpful, Jeff?
Sort of. But it didn't really answer my question, which is, I don't understand why, I mean, I'm completely good with what I thought Bob just described. We need to be equal competitors, we need to ensure that we're not hogging more than our share and everything, and a project's need should stand on its own. I'm good with all that. But what I don't understand is then why are we as an entity, state parks, penalized and have an automatically lower priority than a private organization? That's what I thought she said.
I don't think she did, Jeff. I think what she's saying is we haven't, like the chairman said, we haven't excluded ourselves. I think if there were projects, absolutely. If Tubac, because you're talking with Tubac is they're a friends group too. They could apply as an external entity. It is state parks owned, but they manage that. I think what she's saying is it's really hard to say, well, a project on Tumacacary and a project on Tubac, you won't have
Yeah,
identical.
that was just an
Right.
example, because they're next to each other. You could use San Javier, you know. I just want, my broad concern is this. We don't, for all the reasons that you're far more intimately aware of than I am, we don't have enough money to maintain our own property.
Right.
And so when we have something that is of historical significance that we want to preserve, I understood, and I probably misunderstood, that she said we as state parks will, because it's a state park, will score less than a private entity.
No, not at all, sir. That's not what she meant or
Okay.
said, but I think it's just, no, we just aren't really promoting our people putting in for that because we have other avenues to pursue first. And if that doesn't
Right.
work, there's nothing.
Even if they're not successful. I mean, I get it. I
Right,
know it's
right.
always a struggle.
Yeah,
It's a struggle. The fact is, we're gonna struggle to maintain what we have.
right.
Okay,
And,
I just wanna make sure that we have at least an opportunity to compete.
oh, yeah, for sure. And in fact, Tumacacary would probably be at a disadvantage because they're federal land.
Yeah, they just wouldn't be eligible.
They wouldn't be eligible anyway.
They
but-
can't get funding.
And you get your point, yeah.
The only two other things I would add is Catalina State Park does have a grant through us right now for their Romero Ruin Trail. They're doing interpretive signage, and they're talking with the tribes, they're working with the tribes to make sure that the language on the signage is appropriate. I've talked with several other friends groups at the state parks to see if there's a fit with the funding. And then to Bob's earlier point, the historic preservation arm of the Heritage Fund this year, we only have $300,000. Projects can only apply for up to $60,000. So it's not even that we could give that $300,000 to a singular project. It has to be split. You can't apply for more than 20% of our bucket of money.
Yeah.
So $60,000 is, I mean, I would love to talk to any state park that wants to talk to me about grant funding,
Yeah.
but I just don't think it's gonna go very far at the parks.
Alright, any further questions on item number 7?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Jeff, is there anything that you'd like to add to that motion?
There's no motion.
No motion.
No motion.
Do we have a motion?
We don't need one.
No, this one,
This one.
You
yes.
can.
This one does.
Approve it.
This one, as presented, the criteria, so this is a request from staff that we do have a action item.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that the Arizona State Parks Board approve the proposed Heritage Fund historic preservation scoring criteria presented by staff.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Buchanan seconds, and as previous, we'll do a roll call vote.
John Sefton.
Aye.
Dale Larson.
Aye.
Terry Palmberg.
Aye.
Jeff Buchanan.
Aye.
Sarah King.
Thank you, and motion passes unanimously. All right, on to item number 8, off Madison Avenue, presentation on marketing strategy and Azira data. Cheryl Thompson. And friends.
And let me just say, Woody is our hero because we were not going to be thrilled if we didn't have our presentation first. Alright, so Chairman Larson, members, I'm Michelle Thompson, Deputy Assistant Director, and I am over the marketing component in Arizona State Parks and Trails. And so I have here Anya Vidian and Jennifer Hillman from our agency off Madison Avenue, and I will let them take it away.
Thank you. All right, so we are just gonna jump into a brief intro. I do wanna get to the next slide. So we are off Madison Ave. We've been the state parks agency of record for about 5 years now. Just to kind of sum up what we do, we plan, build, and manage Arizona State Parks' annual media campaign. Our primary goal is to increase visitation. And just a little shout out, this last fiscal year, we generated over 3 million visits.
Wow, that's fabulous.
And here's just the intro of the whole team. Jen and I are the ones who could be here today, but we also have Lizzie and Carrie who are amazing and kind of behind the scenes as well. And I will pass it over to Jen to talk marketing strategy and Azira.
Yes, thank you. So as our main goal is to drive state parks visitation, our challenge was the ability to directly correlate the visitation and the paid media campaign. So our solution was to vet multiple publishers with intricate foot traffic attribution to track the people who saw the ads and then directly visited a state park. So it will pull in directly from the paid media campaign. And with that, we went with Azira because they have the ability to apply across the full media campaign. And then by placing a pixel on the ads, as a target audience is measured, visits a state park as they see the ads. And then with our partnership with them, we analyze the foot traffic monthly and dive into that with them each month. And then by applying the foot traffic attribution to the entire campaign, it kept the ability to maintain our strong media mix with our existing publishers and that historical data that they have with us. And then this helps us gain a deeper understanding of the foot traffic lift driven directly by the campaign. And then again, it's just applied by a pixel being placed on all of the publisher ads before they are served to our target audience. And then that audience that enters our park is captured as a visit to any state park.
Cool.
And then to dive into our reporting, this is October through June of last year. So we had just over 1.5 million exposed visits, which is every visit counted. So one person could be counted multiple times. And then 360,036 exposed visitors, which is the unique visits. Next slide, please. And then just some key insights that we learned throughout the year. Mondays and Sundays drive the highest visits. Impressions served within Arizona and then our key drive markets drive the strongest visitors to state parks. And then Lake Havasu and Riordan Mansion drove 88% of all visits throughout the year. And then BidTelect, which is one of our native article publishers, and then Digital Remedy, a video publisher, were the two strongest throughout the year. And then benefits of applying the Azira data. Foot traffic attribution provides a connection between advertising and the visitation numbers, directly attributes the year-over-year foot traffic lift to state parks from our paid media campaign, and then it solidifies the return on investment for advertising campaign by providing park visitation data that was driven by users exposed to the campaign. And then our team analyzes the data and applies learnings for campaign optimizations for fiscal year planning. And then with that, we did take our learnings from last year as we were planning for fiscal year 26, which just launched this month. And we allocated more money into those two top publishers as they continue to show strong performance. And then a key benefit is we can use last year's visitation numbers to compare year-over-year trends and any shifts in our seasonality. And thank you, and please let us know if you have any questions.
Excellent, thank you. Great overview. Any questions from the board?
Where did the
Just a
name?
comment, nice picture of a varied bunting.
That's from Catalina too.
From Catalina.
Where does the name Off Madison Avenue come from?
Well, back in the day, kind of the big agencies were in New York and on Madison Avenue. And so our founders and owners like the idea that we're off Madison Ave, but we still kind of have that connection.
Okay.
They're off mad men.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
on your visitation, is it strictly just the numbers? You're not looking at visitor behavior, any of those kinds of surveys, their feelings about being in parks or anything along those lines? Strictly just numbers, just a quantitative survey analysis?
Yes. But we do have some brand studies that don't correlate this that help drive some of that sentiment with it as well.
And then, Michelle, to you, how does this relate to the Arizona Office of Tourism? Because I assume, the contract is with this agency, but AOT, I assume, works with you to be able to promote this even from there? No?
No, this is strictly us.
Okay.
So Off Madison Avenue is also the agency of record for Game and Fish and the Arizona Office of Tourism.
Okay.
So it provides us with some helpful insights. You know, they can say tourism is planning on doing this, or Game and Fish is launching this campaign, and we can kind of tag onto that. But in general, this is all us. This is my team creating the advertisements, our team creating the themes, deciding what we want to put out there, and then them just having the recommendations of where we should be putting it, how we can best spend our limited budget to get the biggest bang for the buck.
Mhm.
And then just this past year, being able to finally come to you guys and say, we're putting all these ads out there, this is what it means. Because when you have a digital ad or a print ad especially, it's really hard to say, has that even been effective, right? You know, you can say this many people saw it, but we still didn't have a way to say they saw it and then they took an action. They actually went to the park. So our messaging is typically around that responsible recreation. The ads that they're seeing show the beautiful places and the things that they can do and how to do it responsibly, and then they're choosing to take that action. So we do know that we're having an impact in the parks. We know that those messages are being seen, and that at least 360,000 people have taken the next step and gone to the park, at least 1.5 million times.
And then just a final question, what relationship, if any, do you have with spring training baseball? Now, I know you used to do that quite a bit. I'm not sure we do it as much now, but is that any type of a branding incentive when the spring trainers are down here?
So what we do every year for our advertising is Off Madison Avenue issues an RFP, and they issue that to anyone who has ever contacted us and said, let's advertise, let's work together. They issue it to, I don't know, do you guys know how many people?
I think it was 25 this year.
25 different groups?
Yeah.
Okay. So all of those people then can put in an RFP or a proposal for us to advertise with them. And then Off Madison looks at how we're gonna get the biggest bang for our buck. Cactus League Spring Training was something that we advertised with in the past.
I remember.
They're really pretty expensive for what we get. One of the key things that they offered us was having a map on their website that showed the relation of state parks to the Cactus League training facilities, which, as you can guess, is not a great relationship. You know, people who are like, hey, I'm gonna be out in Mesa at the, Cubs facility, maybe they wanna drive the additional miles to go to Lost Dutchman, but in general, people who are going to a spring training game in Surprise are not gonna go, hey, Dead Horse is just around the corner, let me drive up to Cottonwood. So we weren't seeing a huge benefit from that. The other thing they offered was us going to the games and having a booth and a presence at the games. again, 90% of the people that came up said, oh my gosh, I love Camelback Mountain, this is really great, where can I go? I'm in Phoenix for the spring training facilities, what else can I do while I'm here? And we just didn't have a great answer for that. So, you know, ultimately, because we have such limited funds, we really had to take a look at where are we going to get the biggest bang for the buck? Where are we going to make the biggest impact? And spring training just hasn't fallen into that bucket the past couple of years.
Spring training, Cactus League should pay us to be there with them.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, put that on the record, yeah. Excellent. Any questions?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just to thank Off Madison, we've worked with them for many, many years. And I know you all get this, you all have played in this field for a long time. We now can show what dollars we spend on marketing has a direct impact, not maybe later or 2 years down the road. And marketing has always been, in every agency I've been in, is the first to cut and the last to fund when it came to priorities. Well, now we have, I remember when Michelle came into my office and said, I have it now, we have it. What we do is turning into action right there. It's not a long period of time anymore. This is ammunition that helps us justify budget requests, budget increases and things like that. So this is huge. I mean, I think every agency deals with what are we spending on marketing and how is it having an impact? And we've always known it does, but this is really the smoking gun that we have found of how every dollar we spend, and like Michelle said, this is the bar, okay, is this, if we're gonna spend this money like in Cactus League, is it driving people to our parks? Now we know, at least on our efforts and working with Off Madison, the Department of Tourism, Game and Fish Department, and others, that it is. And it's so good to be able to walk in and justify budget-wise. So it's really been great, but Michelle was ecstatic when she finally got this data to come back to show that what she does have an impact directly, so.
Impressive connection, and also to point out, it's only 9 months.
Yeah.
Of data, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, just due to the way the budget works, we actually can't advertise the full year because we have to stop by the end of June. We have July, August, usually September, when we don't know for sure what the budget is. We're waiting, I mean, especially these past years when the budget is voted on at the very, very end of June.
Yeah.
So we do have some really low budget evergreen advertising that we do through social media, but otherwise everything is really October through June. So yeah, it's not even a full year.
Yeah.
You mentioned Havasu and Reardon are the two biggest attractions in terms of visits on that. Were you surprised that there weren't some that didn't make that top list?
You know, let me just say, they had come to me, and there was a period of time, I forget, a couple months, that Colorado River State Historic Park was one of the top visited parks, and I was blown away because really, I even asked them to go back and double check because it said Colorado River, and I said, do you mean along the Colorado River, like all of the parks in that region? No, it was Colorado River State Historic Park was having the most visits from these ads, so yeah, there have been a lot of surprises. I mean, I think Reardon is a surprise to be having that many visits up there with Lake Havasu, yeah.
Data's always fun.
Thank you guys.
Good job.
All right, we'll move on to agenda item E, future agenda items.
Mr. Chair, I would like to see, I know Jeff is always so good at saying capital projects, and I know there's a bunch down south. Let's get a list of capital projects and what they really are and how many dollars are associated with our backlog of capital projects. And see,
Mark's got that.
I'm sure you've got
He's
it.
in his back pocket
I'm
right
sure
now.
you have it, yeah. But a presentation on that list, so we all know. And then, are they prioritized? And if they are, can we start looking for outside grants? Like Route 66 just got a chunk.
Yeah, grant opportunity.
Okay.
Well done. Mr. Chairman. Item F, Executive Director's report.
Can I add one more to the future?
Future.
We've been talking, you guys have been pounded by grants today, but they're always looking at ways to continuously improve our grant approval process. Examples include like request to modify scope or minor changes to those grants, and we always have brought those to you. There's some changes within the heritage. We've looked at the law, the attorneys have looked into the law about who requires it. I think it would be good to sort of recheck and recheck where we are, where you guys are comfortable, and reviewing certain grants, continue to go. We have some modifications we could present to you with some securities and things like that. It's just a way to continuously improve our process, but also continue to recognize your authority in this, recognize all of the other groups that are reviewing this in any way. But I think we can put together a presentation, I think in December, just to kind of check where we are and see if you guys are comfortable with that as we go forward or not. But just some ideas that we have, we'd like to float in front of you to see if you're comfortable.
And direct staff approval that doesn't even have to come to us.
Right, in some
To
cases.
delay the projects, let's
Right.
just, if it's a percentage or that's
You
what
would
you're talking.
You would be, if that's where you wanted to go, that would just be a delegation authority
Okay.
to me and then to the
Yeah.
grant staff. But we have some ideas in here,
Good.
some ways to improve the process, but keep the integrity
Yeah.
of your authority firmly in place. Okay,
Excellent.
thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, so we'll just move on to item F.
Hey,
Sorry, Jeff.
sorry, I got my hand raised, but apparently that didn't work.
Can't see
I
it.
can't see you.
So I wanted to, just two things briefly, thanks, Mr. Chair. I wanted to echo Terry's comment on capital projects, would really like to see that. I know it's a challenge for us, but just to maintain visibility is important. Second thing, I didn't really get a chance to comment after all of the grants in succession, the presentations, but, and I know Nina will maintain this, but in addition to our process and, manual and these kinds of things, one of the things that I consistently get feedback on people, and it's from law enforcement entities, it's from county managers or city mayors even, how user-friendly our staff has been to help people go through these applications and actually help them create a better application, which in turn we hope actually helps them create a better project. But we have a long history of that. And I think we just need to recognize that. I need to thank you all for doing that, on behalf of all the people in the state. It makes a huge difference.
Thanks, Jeff.
Great feedback, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to move on to the next one?
You're up.
All right. Mr. Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got just a few things to update you on, really exciting times. This was our new beer. Member Buchanan, too bad you're not here. We have samples of our Rockin' River IPA that we braved the storm and actually it was a beautiful day once the clouds cleared up. But we held a unveiling at Rockin' River, and the Historic Brewing Company was there in force to roll out their new beer. I'm not a real IPA person, but this is a really good one. If you don't like real bitter and strong hoppy IPA. But anyway, this is our third beer that has rolled out. A lot of attendance. We were competing with Verde River Days, the weather and traffic and all those things, but we actually exceeded our goal for revenue and attendance. And so this is just some of the pictures there of the Historic Brewing folks. Can't thank them enough. They're really passionate about their beer, and it's fun to talk to people like that really love making beer and selling beer and enjoying beer. Jerome Historic Park celebrated 60th anniversary on October 11th, and it was a great turnout. Weather was, again, not the best, but you know us outdoors people, we don't care. We're just gonna show up and enjoy it. And Jerome, if you haven't been, is really a unique town, but it's also really a neat historic park too. Pin Drop is a partnership that we've just developed. These are those really small trailers that you can drag behind a car. You've probably seen them. They're really neat looking. Our partnership, they were also at Rock and River. We got to talk to the owner, his wife, and his two young kids. They're very nice people, very passionate people. But they're donating 10% of their rental profits to our family camp out program.
That's great.
You all know this program. This is so much fun to talk about. But a new partnership with those guys. It's going from now until May 2026.
Wow.
So we'll keep you updated on what those figures are.
Are they local?
Yes. Yeah,
They're in Miami.
Yeah.
So they've actually
Miami,
had
yeah.
some flooding that they're dealing with, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But
They're all manufactured everything here
Yeah.
in Arizona.
Arizona built. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks, Michelle.
None floated away,
Yeah, I hope not, but he said they were dealing with it.
dealing with it.
The Free Fishing Day at Lake Havasu, October 4th. 250 kids, 100 adults, and 20 adult volunteers were there. We partner with the Game and Fish Department, Fish and Wildlife Service, and Lake Havasu City to put this event on. I mean, the pictures say it all. 250 kids running around with fish on the end of the line. This is one that seems to grow every year in popularity and repeat customers. So we're on track to do it again next year, and we'll keep going with that one. So thanks to all of our partners there as well. We're moving on hiring. If you remember in our budget, we got a couple positions squeaked out in there for our family camp out program. Two of them, actually. One, we're gonna have a program administrator, because you can see this program's growing, and then also a senior ranger. And so we're getting close to getting those people in place. Next week, we have our all-employee conference up in Payson. We're gonna try to bring as many people in our agency together. We're doing this every 2 years, because it's a bear to pull together and to ask people to leave the parks. So we keep people back in the parks to keep it open. But this is a way for us to all get together, do awards. We have guest speakers showing up and kick back and have a little fun, things like that. And then last but not least, this is probably one of the most exciting things that kind of came out of the blue of a contact we made a couple years ago. Terrain Hopper, you've probably heard of them. They're all-terrain vehicles for disabled or challenged individuals. They're right here in Tempe. They're donating 10 vehicles up to $300,000 in vehicles to Arizona State Parks for us to use in our parks. And we can't, Todd LeMay is the contact there. I think the owner actually has just sent this email and said, we're gonna partner with you. We're gonna begin working with them to which parks are best suited for those. They're gonna look at, of course, terrain and all those other things, visitor sign up and a reservation process, facility liabilities, training, day-to-day management, but they're also covering the maintenance of those vehicles.
Wow.
So thank you to Terrain Hopper. We've been really looking at the price tag of these vehicles, and they're up there. So this is not as small as you can see. 300,000 for 10. That's 30 grand if I'm doing my math right.
Absolutely right.
We had that presentation when we were out at the other
Yeah.
building.
Intense engineering, so.
So having a local Tempe-based company step up and come forward, we can't thank them enough. We're so excited about that. What that's going to do to people that have to, are wheelchair bound, who have to sit in the parking lot while their family hikes trails and goes out and has fun. This now gives them an opportunity to go with them. And that's gonna be so cool. So big event planned, when we do this unveiling, we'll definitely send out the invites for you all to be with us as we unveil this. So real exciting time.
Just had a vision of an adaptive teardrop
Exactly.
Going to the parks that are,
Yep.
you know, that would be incredible.
Exactly, so
That's
we're
a
really,
great
really
story.
thankful to those guys and we'll make them proud as we will you too.
A few ads for those.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Are any current events from our board members?
Just a comment
Mr.
related,
Chair, oh, go ahead.
sorry, just a comment related to a recent current event. They do a tremendous job of providing information on the back of the can about state parks. Are there any recognition opportunities that we do for organizations or? Okay. That
Yeah,
was
we
my
can.
question.
Certainly.
Sure. Jeff? Mr. Buchanan?
Oh, thanks. First of all, beer passion is a good thing. And, regarding the Rocking River IPA, I'll just say life is too short to drink crappy beer, so good for all of you for that partnership. I did about 2 weeks ago, I had a day spent on the San Rafael, not at the ranch house. It was a volunteer opportunity with, Arizona Antelope Foundation and Game and Fish replacing fence lines. So we did miles and miles of fence line. I think many of you will know that pronghorn antelope won't jump over a fence, they run underneath them.
Right under.
And the old cowboy fences on our state conservation area down there are all 4 or 5 strand barbed wire. What we did is replace the lowest strand of barbed wire with smooth wire and raise it to 18 inches so that antelope could go underneath it. So got a lot of great feedback. It was based on a partnership between Game and Fish and state parks. Thanks for that partnership. And then afterwards, the head of our friends group, Carol Hilton, took all the volunteers on a tour of the ranch house and everything. So we're well received by all, and I appreciate all the state parks has done and continues to do to conserve that critical area.
Great, thank you, Jeff, for sharing. How are the herds doing down there?
They're actually doing pretty well, and strangely enough, for those that know the area, I'm seeing a picture of Mark right now. I know he's been there. You wouldn't believe it, but pronghorn moved between the San Rafael and the grasslands at Elgin through all those wooded tree lines. You wouldn't think that they would do that, but the herds have been going back and forth, which is actually helpful for genetic diversity and everything else. So they're pretty healthy.
That's great, great to hear.
The ones over here have also been using trees a lot more, which is kind of a funny shift. So interesting to hear that, Jeff.
It's so damn hot.
Fascinating, thank you, guys. All right, call the public. H, doesn't sound like there's anybody. Is anybody online? No call to public, thank you very much. Future meeting dates, we have November on the calendar, however, probably not much agenda items at this point, so we'll keep everybody posted, likely to be canceled. And then let's do plan for the December 18th here at the central office. And with that, it is 12:04 and we shall adjourn.